All right, let's talk about something that gives a lot of people in manufacturing a major headache: implementing material requirements planning, or MRP. We're going to walk through a 6-step guide that will help you totally demystify the process and, actually make it work. So first things first, why is this so hard? I mean, really, why do so many MRP projects go off the rails? Well, a lot of companies get tripped up because they think it's just a software problem. They buy the system, they load up the data, and then it just doesn't work. They end up with more chaos, not less. And this quote from Olaf Simmerin, man, it just hits the nail on the head. The biggest mistake people make is this plug and run approach. It fails every time because it completely skips over the most important part, the strategy. Without a real business plan behind it, the software is just, well, it's just a bunch of code. So here's how we're going to break it all down. This is our game plan. We'll start with the stuff you absolutely have to get right first, the foundation. Then we'll walk through all 6 steps, from building your strategy to the day-to-day operations. And we'll finish with a really important idea, thinking of your MRP as a living system. Let's dive in. Okay, before you even dream of touching the software, we've got to talk about the foundation. Seriously, if you get this part wrong, it's like building a house on quicksand. It doesn't matter how great the house is, it's just not going to end well. These are the non-negotiables. And what's so interesting here is that this list, it has almost nothing to do with technology. This is all about discipline. Your inventory counts have to be spot on. Your bills of material, your recipes, and your routings have to be perfect. And here's the kicker. This isn't a one-person job. You need real commitment from your sales and purchasing teams to keep their data clean. And this right here, this is a perfect example of what we're talking about. It's not just about how many you need, it's when you need them. If your sales team is just plugging in random shipment dates or purchasing isn't keeping receipt dates updated, your entire plan is basically a work of fiction. The system needs the truth about both what and when. Okay, so once that foundation is rock solid, we can finally move on to the first 2 steps of the actual roadmap. And get this, we're still not touching the software yet. This is where you do the thinking that makes everything else work. It's all about strategy. Step 1 is all about categories. But here's the twist. You're not grouping items by what they are, like screws or brackets. No, you have to group them by how you're going to manage them. How should this item be replenished? Is it something we always need on the shelf, or do we only order it for a specific job? That's the question. And here's a great, simple way to visualize that. You create these clear buckets. Frequently used raw materials get treated one way, while seldom used ones get treated completely differently. Standard products that you always sell have a different plan than the custom stuff you only build to order. This simple chart is the blueprint for your whole system. All right, so once you have your categories, step 2 is where you give each one its own set of marching orders. For every single one of those groups we just created, you need to define the rules. Are we going to forecast it? How are we going to reorder it? And maybe most importantly, how bad is it if we run out? And boom, this is what it looks like when you put it all together. See how this works? For our frequently used raw materials, the rule is simple. Use a reorder point, forecast it, and know that running out is a huge problem. But compare that to a custom finished good. We only order it when we have to, we don't forecast it, and running out is, well, it's not great, but it's not a catastrophe. What you're doing right here is literally writing the rule book for your MRP system before you even log in. All right, strategy is done. The blueprint is drawn. Now we can finally start talking about implementation. This is where the rubber meets the road and we translate our plan into the actual system. And step 3 is absolutely critical. It's your safety net. Think about it. You wouldn't launch a whole new product without testing it, right? Same thing here. You take a small, manageable group of items and run them through a simulation in a test environment to see if the system actually behaves the way you expect it to. And when you're doing that simulation, here are a few pro tips to keep in mind. First, just worry about materials. Don't complicate it with capacity planning yet. Second, try really, really hard to stick with the standard software features. Customizations can become a nightmare down the road. And finally, throw some curveballs at it. See what happens when demand suddenly spikes or drops. Okay, so your simulation worked, the strategy is solid. Now, step 4 is just about scaling up. You take those settings that you've already proven work and you apply them to all the other items in the same category. This is often where a tool like Excel comes in handy for doing those big NAS updates. Okay, deep breath. The system is set up, the data is in, now we're shifting gears into the final and maybe most important phase. How do you actually live with this thing day in and day out? This is all about operations. So, step 5 is all about finding your rhythm. The best practice here is to run MRP consistently, like every single day. Usually it's scheduled to run overnight so that every morning your planners are working with a completely fresh, up-to-date plan for everything. And if you're thinking, no way, my system can't handle that, check this out. This number comes from a real-world example. A company with 85,000 items ran the whole thing in just 45 minutes. With a clean setup, it's totally possible. And this is what a planner's day should look like. It's not about being overwhelmed. It's a clear, step-by-step process. You're not just blindly clicking accept on everything the system suggests. First, you fix any errors. Then, you handle the real emergencies. After that, you review changes to orders you already have. And only then do you look at placing new ones. It's a smart, prioritized workflow. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. This might be the single most important idea in this entire explainer. An MRP implementation is not a project with an end date. It's not something you finish. It's a living system you have to manage. Which brings us to step 6. You have to continually optimize. Think of your MRP system like a garden. You can't just plant it and walk away, expecting it to flourish. You have to tend to it, prune it, and adapt it as the seasons change. Your business is exactly the same. It's always changing. So what does that tending the garden actually look like? Well, it's things like this. Your supplier's lead time gets longer. You adjust the parameters. A new trend boosts demand. You update the forecast. It's about using smart tools like safety lead times to give yourself a buffer and using dampers to keep the system from overreacting to every tiny little change. It's about... So I want to leave you with this one final thought. Take a hard look at your own operation and ask yourself this question. Is your plan just a static report that gets printed out and probably ignored? Or is it a living, breathing system that's actually helping you win? Because honestly, that's the difference between an MRP system that fails and one that becomes your company's superpower.